the country under the tag Occupy Everywhere. Now, there's been no let-up as the disgruntled youthful protesters insist on their push for a better economy and better governance in the country. The Gen Z have described themselves as leaderless, as tribeless, as partyless, but not rudderless, according to their own words. And so in studio with us, as we take a look at what's happening in the country, we have Nurdin Kagai, I beg your pardon, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. We also have Anthony Ngeru. He is the head of communications research at the UDA party, as well as economist Ruth Kinyanjui. Ruth, thank you for joining us here on New Dawn. Now, the president is between a rock and a hard place, quite literally, as the push for the youthful protesters goes on. Many have in fact said that they lack trust in the president's promises and even the call for dialogue because of the doublespeak that has come out even in the promises being made. The president has promised austerity measures in that interview on Sunday night, but also spoke of borrowing more. And so people are reading doublespeak in that. What are your thoughts on that conversation of austerity versus borrowing, and what options does the president have now?
Thank you so much. If we look at what has happened in the last 1-2 months, the president right now actually has, I can call it a turnaround moment for him to make it good. But one thing that is for sure, for the next 3 years to the end of his first term, then he has to take changes very slowly. That is one. And especially when it comes to the fiscal policies that we have already seen. When you look at the Finance Bill 2024, I think comparing to what is happening on the ground, I think there was a lot of oversight and there was a lot of talk more than reconciliation of his manifesto, which is more of bottom line. And I think the bottom is the one that was speaking through the Gen Z. And we can see not only Gen Zs, but everyone joined. So what he has at the option right now is to take things very slowly. First, stick to the current fiscal policies and taxation policies that are already in place and ensure that can be sustainable for this particular current year. Finance bill doesn't have to be that heavy. That is the first thing. Second thing that has to happen, can the current fiscal policy be efficient in terms of collection? Because we all know that has not been efficiently done, and that is why the attainment of the deficits from KRA have not been attained most of the time. Actually, if I look for the last 3, 4, even 5 years, KRA has been lagging behind in terms of meeting its budgets or meeting its collection. The other thing also, what we've seen with this Finance Bill 2024 is a type of a thing that there is something that the proposals are being done, the amendments are being done, but in terms of KRA being able to implement those proposals become very difficult. So there's such a big disconnect. So can things go a little bit slowly, but also be more informed? We don't have to do an overhaul. No, we can identify these gaps, then fill them with time. But that, of course, economic time doesn't mean it doesn't have to be 1 year or 2 years. Economic turnarounds take time, and these turnarounds will take, actually, I look at it right now, they'll take more than 3 years that we already have in place. Why do I say that, Michelle? Because the most important point or thing right now is reconciliation of this country. We have to find what are the root causes of the issues, because the current issues that we saw last week or we continue to see in this country is as a result of press that people have been having. People have been pressed for a very long time, and that is why now we are coming to say or talk about doublespeak. And the president is being saying whatever he's saying, he's not committed to it. But how can he turn those words around to be able to ensure that now the country can be in harmony and that we can move together? Remember, the gaps between the haves and have-not in Kenya and Africa in general is such a big thing. And that is what is affecting. And the rural, actually one of the effects of the youth bulge that we've seen actually recently, and especially in the cities, is because of one of the things that, as a result of one of the implications of youth unemployment, which is rural-urban migrations. And we can see that the cities are full with idle youth who do not have jobs, who are frustrated, who feel like they're being lied on. So what is the way forward right now? There has to be a resolve. And this is what we need to feel that the president needs to start doing, or start saying and doing, to ensure that everyone is accommodated in the current economy and everyone is thriving.
All right. And so, Judine, then the financial year of 2024-2025 began yesterday, and the Kenya Revenue Authority is essentially meant to continue with revenue collection measures that we have been using in the Finance Bill of 2023-2024. But you brought in an important conversation earlier, because Kenyans want a crackdown on corruption.
Yes.
Kenya has been asking, and it may seem very simplistic, but Kenyans keep asking, you want to borrow 1 trillion shillings. Can you not get that 1 trillion shillings if we seal the country's corruption loopholes? Now, it may not be able to happen that fast, but take us through the conversation on odious debt, because we have seen situations even in Mozambique where the Constitutional Court declared null and void loans worth about 1.4 billion shillings. But this also triggered an economic financial crisis in the country. Why is it important to address the issue of odious debt, and how can the country address it to solve the current economic crisis?
You see, the problem we have is that there were allegations first and foremost by late Okiom Tata. He's the one who brought about the issue of odious debt. And he said that as a country we have paid whatever we're supposed to pay, we don't have anything else to pay. Then he said that money that was taken, most of the money never went to the use that it was taken. And it was taken without the approval of Parliament. So the question is, we ask ourselves, so where did this money go to? Who took this money and for what purpose? Now that forms odious debt. Now that is why we are saying we need a holistic audit as to our national debt. What do we owe? What are we paid? What is pending? Those are questions we need to understand, because when we are told, each time when you ask about taxes that are being collected, we're told, oh, 7 shillings goes to paying debt. Right. Which debt? What are we paying? Who is this we are paying? And this money that we took, where did it go to? You see, those are questions, because taxpayers' money needs to be guarded. You talked about corruption. When you wake up today morning and you read that 385 billion was paid by NHIF via a typing error, what does that tell you as a country? You wake up today morning to read an allegation by someone elected that they were paid 2 million shillings to pass the finance bill. That is Rachel Nyamai. What are you supposed to tell yourself? And then people ask, why do you want to recall members of parliament? So you ask yourself, if you are paid 2 million, who paid you? That's the question. Okay. So we are going to fight corruption. So who will fight it if there's no goodwill? You know, we keep talking about fighting corruption. We form reports. We put conferences. There's this conference that EACC always has every other year. It's a waste of time, if you ask me. A waste of time, waste of money. They keep talking about fighting corruption. They come on TV, they talk tough, but nothing is being done at the end of the day. That is a question. And that is why you see this issue of opulence comes up. Because Kenyans are asking themselves, we are suffering, life is hard, but you have members of parliament living large. We know their salaries, but you can parade serious motor vehicles, you can parade serious cash on tables, you can show us the lavish lifestyle you're living. And that is, she talked about things that have been boiling for a while. You see, as Kenya, we have a problem people don't understand. Over the years, since independence, people have different issues that are historical and unresolved. You have a TGRC report that's never been implemented. You have the new land report that's never been implemented. So when the land issue was brought up during this time of finance bill, people erupted, because you have a land problem in this country that has never been adequately solved. So the question we ask this government of today, because it's still the government at the end of the day, even people are saying occupy everywhere and go home, what goodwill do you have to fight corruption? And if it is you're fighting corruption, remember this same government has allegations. There's the edible oils, there's now the fertilizer, there's so many issues, and nothing is being done. We're being told there's no evidence. But if really we want to tackle corruption, we can solve it. The problem we have, as I finish, the problem we have is one. We weaponize corruption in each and every administration. That's a sad reality. Those who are closer to the powers that be are never questioned. Those in the cold as perceived opposition are always hounded by Subarus. You know that song, Subaru Yambaru may come. It always comes to them. The sad reality is that those who are seen, proximity to power shields those who are engaging in acts of corruption. So if we want to crack the whip, irrespective of your dealings with the president of the day, we need to see heads roll and not this petty corruption that we see. You arrest a few people, bundle them in court, and then evidence is always weak. People say that lawyers always lie. It's not about lying. It's the evidence we present in court. If I take him to court today and my evidence is weak, he'll walk out free, because at the end of the day, the agencies that are tasked with providing crucial evidence always fail us as well. So that asks the question, do they do their work independently?
All right. It's a great point to bring up. And Eric, many have asked whether Kenya is in the business of paying debt, because we are always paying debt. And so the conversation has come up now of debt justice. Kenyans want to see heads rolling. Kenyans want to see people take accountability, take responsibility for mismanagement and corruption of funds in the country. And this then would have to begin with President William Ruto himself. And so when it comes to the conversation of debt justice and the whole concept of odious debt, which is essentially who paid that debt, where was this money taken, how did it benefit Kenyans? And if you cannot answer those questions, then it is odious debt. Many then have called for an audit of Kenya's debt. You are the head of communications research at UDA. Do we have plans to audit Kenyans' debt to ensure that taxpayers get debt justice, if at all there is no debt to pay for the country?
Thank you for that question, Michelle. And first of all, going back to the issue of odious debts, which has been highly perpetuated by Okiya Omtatah, I'd say that that is something which is very imaginary, because whatever we owe, both internationally and externally and internally, they're in the public domain. The president was very clear about auditing of our current debts, and he said that that report will be availed within the next 1 week. That was very clear. And the issue about that my brother here has raised about abductions, I think that is quite absurd when we say that when a police officer wants to question you, it turns out to be an abduction. And one of the things that I've really been asking myself, why would I be a person of interest to the police and not my brother here or my sister here? It means that they have intelligence that there's some irregularities with the person of interest. So whatever has been going on has not been abductions, just like the president had said, because the president made a full commitment.
So how would you describe it? Because you've seen the videos.
Yes.
How would you describe it, if not abduction?
Okay. First of all, if there is an order that you avail yourself for questioning and you do not honor that order, the police have the mandate to take you.
We saw that in the case of Alfred Keter, but he said he had not been summoned by the police.
Okay, those are details that we cannot establish because I think those are discrete details that the police have. But what I'm trying to say, the president was very categorical when he was coming into power that never again will the police force be used as a force to, you know, to intimidate people.
So and he did. But look at the abductions, or at least alleged abductions that we've seen, because we have seen several pictures and CCTV footage online. Many of these were critics of the government during these anti-finance bill protests. Are you saying that they all were summoned by the police and did not?
And that is just it. There are a lot of critics, including my brother here. Were you questioned by the police? No, you are not, because you are not a person of interest.
The question is, were those taken all summoned by the police and refused to present themselves before they were taken in the manner that they were?
They were people of interest. We have our own intelligence in the country. The police have their own intelligence, and they have their own reasons why they would want to question X person and not Y person.
Were they summoned by the police? Questioning, yes, but were they summoned before they were abducted?
If you are a person of interest and there are some irregularities that you are partaking in, the police have the mandate to arrest you for questioning.
Arrest? Yes.
Yes.
What is the process of arrest? And we had President William Ruto in that Sunday interview saying the police comes and identify themselves, even if they're in plain clothes, and they show you identification, and then they arrest you.
Yes.
Were those arrests in the videos that you have seen, would you describe those as arrests? I would
want to believe that they introduced themselves as police officers, and undertook their mandate as police officers, because the people who were arrested were people of interest to the government. Yes.
You know, the law says every accused person has a right to fair hearing. That's Article 50 of the Constitution. You can never go away from that. Now, people might call it whatever they want to call it, but that's an abduction. When you come to someone's house at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and you break their door and you pick them and you run with them and you keep them incommunicado, no access to lawyers. We have to run around finding out where these people are. You arrest someone in Nairobi, take him to Kajiado. What are we saying? Even, you know, look at the jurisdiction. Arrest is in Nairobi. Is in a cell in Kajiado, for example, like Oguda. What are we telling the country? You see, the sad reality is that when you normalize these things, is the day that we will be coming here, I speak on TV, I move out, there's someone waiting for me. And we cannot go back to those days. Whether people like it or not, we can never go back to those days. Those who are having a hangover of the old constitution need to wake up. Some cold water, ice bath will help that. Because we have a new dispensation. That is the 2010 constitution. When you want to arrest someone, there is a procedure. All right? You summon them, for example. If they are summoned and they don't come, there's a way of arresting them. But now you have a situation where people disappear. And we have to come up with a toll line like LSK, so we find out where these people go. There are so many critics on X who are taken at night, late in the night. And then when they are taken, when they come back, the stories they give, they were asked to give passwords of their phone, passwords of their account. Why? Because you are tweeting that ABCD is happening? Is that well?
It's not about tweeting.
Let me just finish.
We all tweet.
We have to have a scenario where, you see, the government has to understand, one, we do have the freedom that we enjoy in the Constitution. Now, so long as you do not infringe on those freedoms, which those people have not, and that is why none of them has been conferred a charge, because it will fail flat in court. The fact that your freedom you're exercising has not infringed on any person's else's freedom, there's no problem as to what you're doing. But now we have a scenario where the government doesn't have thick skin. So when you question them, they come after you.
Right.
We can't have such a situation
I'd like
in the
to go to Ruth, but Anthony mentions that they had their own intelligence, and this is why then these people were picked up. And the question of intelligence now is quite controversial. Was it there? Was it not? What was it about? Are you saying that all the persons who've been abducted or disappeared, taken against their own will in the last 2 weeks of the anti-tax protests, you had intel that all of them were persons of interest in criminal activity in these protests?
I'm not saying that they had, all of them had, you know, they were partaking in criminal activities. What I'm trying to say is the government has its own intelligence. The government has its own structures. They know why they would want to question Anthony. They know why they wouldn't want to question Michelle. So what I'm just trying to say, even what my brother said about Twitter, probably 1 or 2 people may have tweeted something which may have contributed to maybe probably hate speech or something, and they need to be questioned about that.
All right.
And the details of whatever they you know, whatever why they were arrested, they remain solely on the police, and I feel like the police need to be given their space to carry out their mandate.
Right.
However,
that being said, the situation on the ground is that those abductions have fueled fear and a lack of trust between the people and the Kenya Kwanza government. Now, the president made it very clear. The police service is an independent institution. He has no control there. But many ask, because Kenyans are going out to the street, and there are those who say, when you remain quiet in the face of an injustice or neutral, then you are propagating the injustice. Many have asked now, we don't want dialogue, we want executive action. Why is it that the president cannot pronounce himself on perhaps the illegalities that Kenyans are questioning? Why hasn't he moved to quell the fears of Kenyans that this is not a return to the dark days of abductions because you're a government critic? Has he no stand on the abductions that are being seen in the country?
Well, what I would want to say about that is, you see, the law is a double-edged sword. The same way it cuts on the people who are, you know, breaking the law, the civilians, it has also to apply to the police. If at all there is any police that broke any kind of law when they're in the process of, you know, getting their people of interest, they also have to be held accountable. The same way, the CCTV footage of some of the infiltrators of the protest. The same way, if there was any police who overstepped their mandate in protecting the protesters, they also need to be held accountable. So we need not to look at this issue from one angle. We should look at it from both angles. If there's anyone who broke the law, whether it's the police, whether it's the civilians, they all have to be held accountable.
And Ruth, I'd like to go back to the issue of audio state, but in your view, and many say that the president's interview on Sunday, while they say it lacked empathy when it comes to death, some say it may just have, what is it, sort of cleaned the police service of all the complaints and concerns that Kenyans have had with regard to excessive use of force over the last 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on the fact that the president really did not touch on the conduct of the police at all?
I think watching that interview, I think for him is the fact that I think there's still an unbelief of how the masses really came out. I think that was really unforeseen. And the fact that really Kenya was united in such a big thing. And the fact that the police were at some point could be felt like they are overwhelmed. So I think, and also I look at something also very different and critical in terms of the advice maybe he receives in terms of what is happening on the ground. I remember in 2022, if there's something that was really out there, is that ground mambo ni different. Like what has really happened, and I know my brother here is speaking about intelligence, you know, and I know this intelligence should be something that can, should be also escalated to, to that level. But I see still like a really disconnect. But now what is happening, Michelle, is that the power of the people is really coming out very powerfully and cannot be ignored, and especially from an economic standpoint, and how such, because if you look at previous mandamanos or previous demonstrations, they used to happen largely in Nairobi. But looking at what happened last Tuesday, they happened countrywide, even in smaller towns that no one could have expected. So what is then happening? Because what is then the country saying, and what is the implication, even as the president came out to speak to the people? First, the police could have been overwhelmed, having seen what we saw that day. But from an economic standpoint, what is the message, Michelle? First, Kenyans are law-abiding people. That you can take it to the bank. Kenyans are law-abiding people. Do they have a problem with paying taxes? Kenyans have never had a problem in paying taxes. Yeah. What is the problem? The problem is, how are the promises being rolled out? That is one. Two, are we even understanding the different sectors in this economy or in this country? Look at the current issues and the current development and the changes that have happened to different sectors, including the digital space where most of the taxes was also being directed. What are the changes? The other thing that you realize, Michelle, is that one of the things that we threw out of the window like almost 20 years ago is R&D, which is research and development. That even in the current university does not exist. So we do not have areas where research is conclusively done to be able to develop a sector, say the digital sector, and what is really upcoming in that sector and how to even tax it properly. What then that is doing to this country? Let me tell you what it's doing to this country. First, many people are not paying taxes, but also the way they're supposed to do that, there is no a way forward in terms of how they should come inside the net. And the government then is being seen like it's forcing its people to do something. The people, they're not refusing, but they do not know how. And all those back and push is now leading this country to debt. Why? Because our taxing system is not efficient. It's not optimal. It has gaps. yeah, then we are becoming over-reliant to debt while this country is still capable to pay its taxes.
All right. Of course, even as we take a look at what's happening in the country, there's an update that we had a protester who was actually charged with the over-invasion. One of the demonstrators who had allegedly entered into the precincts of Parliament during the last 2 weeks' Gen Z protests. His name is Stephen Nyerenchi, and he was charged, among others, with unlawfully entering into Parliament precincts, contrary to Section 31. And, of course, we are waiting to see how that case panned out, but he was released on a cash bail of 2,000 shillings, even as Gen Z go back to the streets today. Let's take a break here on New Dawn. When we come back, we revisit the issue of Kenya's debt as Kenyans ask for accountability. Is it time for Kenyans to have a list, a breakdown of where monies borrowed went, how they impacted Kenya's taxes, how they impacted Kenya's development, for example? We'll be discussing that and much more on Ruto's austerity measures after the break.
DJ Bludgy. What are you?